All right, book fans, it's the end of the month, June 2021, and that means it's time to share the reading wrap-up. I had a pretty busy month of reading in June of 2021, and I'm looking forward to sharing that with you next. Okay, first up in the month of June, I read Us Against You by Frederick Bachman. This is the follow-up to the book Beartown, which I really enjoyed, surrounding a really ugly incident that happens involving a youth hockey team. And it's a very powerful story, and I was really hooked when I read Beartown, and then when I saw the opportunity to read the follow-up book, it was really a no-brainer. I don't typically read a lot of books that have, or at least a lot of books that are part of series. And so when I had this opportunity, I knew Beartown was a book I'd always wanted to read. And so when I saw it available as an audiobook, I said, well, you know what? Let's go ahead and hit 1.8 speed and let's listen to it and get it all in. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. Again, very powerful story. And so when Us Against Them came about, it was just only natural that I would go and pick that one up too and check it out, and I was not disappointed in either one of those books. Both very good, compelling stories. Frederick Bachman, an excellent writer. Really enjoy reading his books. I suspect I'll probably be reading more of his books coming up in the near future. He had a very good book last year that was very highly thought of, and so I'm looking forward to other books that are going to be coming out by this particular author. But Us Against Them, great start to the month and a great follow-up to Beartown. Definitely one that I enjoyed. Next up, I read Last Final Girl, which is a little bit of a parody type book and kind of more of a funny type book, a play on the final girl concept that we see so often in horror movies. And so this was one that I picked up. It was a very quick read. I kind of devoured it in really kind of a matter of hours. And so it was interesting. Part of the reason I read it was because, I had been working on a horror story, and I was starting to read some more horror type books just to get a feel for the writing style a little bit more. And so in case I do decide to write maybe another horror book in the not too distant future, I want to read books like that and be exposed to books like that. So it wasn't necessarily the best book that I read in the month of June, but it was definitely a book that I was glad that I picked up. And again, it was a really quick read. Next up is All Our Twisted Secrets by Diana Urban, and this is one of those books that I really like about these group of high school kids, and they have obviously a secret, and so you get some really interesting interactions. You get a diverse range of personality types in the characters, and it leads to a mystery. So this is another audiobook that I picked up, and it was a really fun, quick read. A kind of a story, again, that I really enjoy, and so I was definitely glad I picked this one up. Again, very quick read, and yet very entertaining, some compelling characters, and kind of an interesting twist at the end that really kind of got me going. But, again, it was just kind of like the Breakfast Club movie turned into more of a thriller type of story with more of a dark edge to it. So that was kind of what I was envisioning when I first read the description of it, and then even as I was listening to it, I was still kind of getting that feel, which made for an interesting reading experience. Next up is Detransition Baby by Tori Peters. This was interesting. It involves 3 women, transgender and cisgender, and there's a lot going on in this one, and it definitely gives you a feel for it's just a story that I haven't really read very much in the past. And so when I saw it and the opportunity to pick it up, it was really one that I just not only just because it was expanding my reading interest from a diversity standpoint, but it also was a very interesting story about detransitioning, transitioning, and and then a pregnancy thrown into the middle of it. So it really made for a very interesting story. I enjoyed the writing, and I would definitely look forward to reading more books by this particular author. Definitely glad I picked this one up. Next up was The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I talked a little bit about this in my mid-year freakout video, so you can see a little bit more about it in that particular video. But I did rate this as the best book that I read in the first half of the calendar year 2021. So that tells you about how highly I thought of this particular book. And so I really enjoyed Taylor Jenkins Reid's writing style. I have picked up another book from hers, Malibu Rising, that I'm looking forward to reading as well. And The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, I went into it with not really super high expectations, and I was pleasantly surprised. And so that's a definite win for me in terms of picking a book that I wasn't overly enthusiastic about because my expectations again weren't that high, but it more than exceeded my expectations. Very entertaining read. It put a hook in me right off the bat, and I really had to finish through to the end. Not that that was hard, because it was really well written and it really did a good job of carrying you through it, so you don't feel like you're dragging. You feel like you're right there going in stride with the story. And then it got down to the end, twists at the end that were definitely not exactly what I saw coming, but I think I was in kind of the right neighborhood of where I thought the story was ultimately going. But very entertaining read, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Next up, I'm going to knock out two birds with one stone, because we're talking about the same author, Maureen Johnson, and we're talking about the continuation of the Truly Devious series with, boom, The Hand on the Wall, and then The Box in the Woods. And so The Hand in the Wall is the third book in the original Truly Devious trilogy, and this was a very fun book to read, to really continue with the story. A really cool story. And I had the original trilogy on my bookshelves for a long time, and I finally decided to pick it up, and I was really happy I did. I really just blew right through the first three books in the series. I had already pre-ordered this book, which is the next installment, the fourth installment, though it goes in a little bit of a different direction, but it was really fun to finally finish the original trilogy. Then The Box in the Woods, very fun story to read. Summer camp type vibe going on. We continue with Stevie Bell, is in really a very intriguing character to read about and follow, and I definitely will be very excited about more books featuring Stevie Bell, more books in the Truly Devious series, and more books in general by the author Maureen Johnson. Next up is The People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry, and I've heard pretty good things about Emily Henry, mostly from the book Beach Read, which I do have on my Kindle device. I've not read it yet, but I've heard that one is really good. Some people liked it more than this particular book. This book was really interesting because it deals with two people who develop this friendship, and then something happens between the friends, and it really changes the dynamic of their friendship, and they vacation together each year, which is kind of an interesting concept to me, and one at times I had a hard time wrapping my head around, but it was still an interesting story as they talk about each of the years that they have vacationed together, and while focusing on in different chapters, focusing on each of the years that they vacationed together, and then in another storyline focusing on the current vacation that they're taking, and so you see a lot of the interactions. There are times when it maybe drags a little bit, but it was really an interesting story, and I was really curious how it was going to end and what was the thing that really upset the dynamic of their relationship. So it was definitely one that I was glad that I read. People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. Next up is Reconstructing Amelia by Kimberly McCreight, and this is one I was definitely excited about reading. I've already read two other books by Kimberly McCreight, really like her writing style, even though she does get a little bit more sometimes in some of her books into the legal aspect of it, which sometimes I'm not always feeling the legal type of stories, but I do really enjoy her writing style, and Reconstructing Amelia is very good. Very interesting to me because guess what? Happens at an elite private school, which is always a turn on for me and is always a hook that really gets me into a story. This one is particularly interesting because the mother goes back and there's stuff that's going on with her daughter, another woman, and so she kind of has to piece things back together, learning more about her daughter's secret life to help solve what's been happening. And so it made it a really interesting read for me. I was definitely glad I picked it up. Did it as an audiobook, very, very fun read, and definitely looking forward to reading more books by Kimberly McCreight. And so that does it. A busy month of June in 2021 for me in terms of reading. Really had a chance to take in some good books that I really enjoyed. Had a chance to branch out and read some different types of books than what I would normally read. And so that was definitely something that made the month of June very exciting. I'm also looking forward to July of 2021. I have some great reads that I'm really excited about, including some pre-orders, one of which for sure that I will talk about that recently came in. And you know anything about this channel, you'll know I'm talking about, well, just stay tuned and you'll learn more about that. But for now, please consider hitting the like button for this video since you've made it all the way through to the end. And if you have not subscribed to the channel, please consider doing that as well, as I continue to share BookTube and AuthorTube content from now into who knows how long into the future.